This is a recording of an interview I did a little while ago with David Lichman, where we talk about happy horses. So this episode is one of a series where I interview professionals about this subject. Now, I apologize for the sound quality. It isn't quite as good on this recording, but I thought you would really enjoy the conversation, so I'm posting it anyway. David has been a friend and colleague of mine since the late 90s, and he was my first teacher of natural horsemanship. So here we go, episode 79, Happy Horses with David Lichman. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. Welcome, David Lichman. And
hi, Karen.
Thank you. Hi.
Let me try that again. Hi, Karen.
Hello, David. Okay, we have to remember why we're here. First, thank you for being part of my Happy Horse interview series. For those of you who don't know David, he is a 5-star Parelli Professional, and he was actually my first introduction into natural horsemanship. And we have been friends, colleagues, and co-mentors since then, which was the 90s, the late 90s. David's also a fan of Dressage Naturally. Is that safe to say, David?
Huge fan.
Yay! So, I love going to David with my interesting questions because I always get really interesting answers from him. No pressure at all.
Wait, should I be closer? You were closer there for a minute. How's that?
I can do that. I'm movable. I just leaned. Okay. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So this all started because a student recently asked me, how do I know if my horse is happy? And, I gave him an answer, but it really made me wonder how other professionals would answer that question and how other professionals think about their horse's happiness and what they do to keep their horses happy. I think it's a subject that we can't really think too much about. It's certainly interesting to me. In dressage, the rule book even says that the object of dressage is the development of the horse into a happy athlete. So I can't stop thinking about how this question, and I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I have a few, very few. So the first thing I did is I called up Dr. Jennifer Zeligs and I said, did Karen ask you to interview on the how do you tell if your horse is happy? Because I was thinking about stealing your answer and cheating.
Well, she is going to be on the series, but you're going first because that's the time that you chose.
But I'm not going to steal her answer. Plus, she wouldn't give me one.
Well, can I start with, I think, first of all, does happiness matter to you? Does your horse's happiness matter to you?
Yes, I'd say yes. And I like the question you phrased earlier as is what, is happiness the mere absence of unhappiness? Can it be that? Or, what is it? And the real answer, in some discussions with Jennifer, but the real answer is it's not possible to know from the inside. So we have to judge on behavior. We have to judge the behavior. I just watched a thing from a neuroscientist about trying to figure out, emotional states based on behavior because we don't have a way to look inside. So we're going to look at behavior to see, do they appear to be happy? Mm-hmm. And then I think your question is, what does that look like? Because we know what it looks like when they're not happy. So what does it look like when they are happy? And for me, the simple answer is, do they show up? Now, I have the I guess it's the advantage that I play at liberty. So like if I'm riding, they I kind of they've shown up whether they want to or not, because I'm sitting on them. I mean, I guess they could leave, but it wouldn't be pleasant. So the fact that liberty horses show up and ask, "Can I do it again?" It's a question of motivation, I think. That's what I look for. Are they standing at the gate waiting for their turn, or are they off? Oh, thank God he didn't pick me. So that's kind of what I look for. The other thing is, I forgot.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I think that's a huge part of it. And I think what you said about the riding is really important. I mean, yes, horses can get rid of us and leave while riding, but it's a bigger move. And I think there's, in Liberty, they have that choice in every second. So
yes,
it's
that's
much
what I would.
easier for them to show us, I'm okay with this, I'm not okay with this. Where riding, there's a range where they're not okay, but they're still underneath us because we're controlling it a little more.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what I was thinking of, is that the idea of happiness, I think of it in three ways. The way you just mentioned is, do I have control over my own environment?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is satisfying. All animals, I think, need this and feel good when they have that. So in liberty, of course, they have full control over their environment. Now, I mean, there's ways to make it extreme, such that they don't have control. But I think in my work, they have a lot of control. But then there's the question of, okay, what are the things that are important that might make the horse happy or unhappy? And I think that that there's avoidance of pain,
Mm-hmm.
and attraction to let's say delicious things, or things they like, and also in terms of avoidance of pain, I think that a fearful animal is not going to be happy. So in terms of it was interesting. I was thinking about, why do people why do they go to scary movies? the ones that it makes them happy, they enjoy being scared and having fear. So I can't answer that for people, but I think the horses, when they're not fearful. So I think it behooves us to find ways to help them alleviate their fear. That's basically what I do for a living when I go out, is I help people. Look, let's make sure he's happy in this situation, that he's not afraid, that he feels like he has some control over his own environment. We have techniques for that, and then the happiness can emerge. But then there's another piece of fear, like the fear of things. But there's that thing that Temple Grandin talks about, which is the fear of being separated from the herd. And I said, yeah, it's fear. I mean, why is she making this differentiation? But what she says that's very clever is, you never hear a horse that's afraid of let's say a scary flag screaming and calling. Right. He's like just trying to get out. He's not, but when they are separated from their buddies, then just let them screaming and calling. So there's a difference. She identifies that difference. I'm going to say I lump it all in. That's fear, but there is something different about seeking to be with others. That's a different kind of a fear. So the fear of of the environment, and the fear of being separated, and then there's the when you can alleviate those, then I think you open the door to happiness.
Yeah, and I agree. I think for sure a good place to start is to eliminate the things that are absolutely causing unhappiness. Because I
Yeah.
think part of what happiness is there's a contentment. I'm happy with the way things are. I'm content. And so there's always, for me, it's like, how do you get out of the negative? Now you're just like, okay, I'm not unhappy. And
Yeah.
then there's degrees of ecstaticness or joy. And I
Yeah.
think those are, bonus points. So I love that your kind of baseline is like, let's eliminate fear. Let's eliminate, oh, you went away.
Sorry.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
okay.
I forgot. Hold on. I'm going to put us on Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
I forgot to do that. Now I've completely lost you. Maybe you're there.
You're still there. There you are.
There you are.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So, and I think there is so much out there about how to recognize when your horse is anxious. What does their face look like? What are their behaviors? And I think you're right on. Like, we got to eliminate the things that are causing them pain and fear. And then I think it's interesting what you said about, like, some people love to go to scary movies. Like, what is that? And it's not only fear, but they actually want it. So maybe it's like excitement or variety, or and
there's some intrinsic value to that for those people,
right.
But we have to be careful because they go to the movie knowing that they're not going to get stabbed, right?
Right. No, but
So it's like a safe environment.
Yeah. But this idea, I think some horses, and this is where I think it comes down to individuals, because some horses, to be left all alone in a safe environment, could make them really unhappy. They're bored. I mean, horses, I think, can tolerate things pretty well, but I think some horses love to, like, go somewhere new and, ooh, this is new stuff. And I've felt that personally. I have the horses that love to go out and ones that are like, no, I just want to stay in my nice, safe little environment.
And
It
I think that
seems to me that they love it. We'll put it that way. It seems to me that they seem more happy, whatever that is. They lighten up. They, in those circumstances, where other horses maybe not.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because if we're talking about when we're playing with the horses, my thing is show up, be motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't that happy? That's what it looks like. But if just the state of happiness, they could be just, they're probably happy when they're resting. They're probably happy when they're grazing. That's a different kind of a happiness. So I think what's important to us is, I think almost everybody tries to give the horse a situation where, he's going to be happy when we leave him alone. The real question is he happy about playing with us or letting us ride him or these other things? So I look for ways to just help convince them that they will enjoy it. It's interesting because when you start having horses like Julio, for example, he would get scared a lot, especially when in the big performances, 3,000-5,000 people. You'd see him, and some days he would just be so scared that I had practiced a happy spot for him, which was on his pedestal. So we have the 3-horse Liberty Act, and I have one horse standing on the pedestal. And I have 2 horses going around doing cool stuff. And people thought that's what his job was, to stand there and then later rear or something, or lie down, whatever he was going to do. But the reality was that I could see he was really unhappy, and I needed to give him a happy place that still would be functioning.
Mm-hmm.
He really wouldn't have been happy to leave with the other ones in there. So he got to stay there, and that was happy. There's other times when he wasn't joining in the play, when you could see he was really enjoying just doing his own thing and trying to distract the other ones from doing their thing too. So you could see that he was in that playful mood. So I had different strategies for that.
Mm-hmm.
When he was being that way, I'd say, okay, I'm going to play that game with you. We're going to run. We're going to chase. I'm going to send the other ones to go get you. I'm going to hop on one and follow you around or something. But in the case where I could see that he was troubled, I would give him a happiness that matched his needs there.
Mm-hmm. That's cool because, well, for one thing, there could be two different types of horses, two different horses. One, when he's upset, needs to stand still. For another one, that might make him more fearful to have to stay in one place and needs to move. And now you have one horse that switches sometimes.
Yeah.
So how do you know?
Well, I think
Like
it's,
what are the signs? And I know this is like, whatever you say is not going to be like the perfect dissertation on this, but it's like just gut feeling
yeah.
with
But
you and
I
your
see,
horse.
you
Like,
know,
what
when they are wringing their neck, that's a, you know, a statement of coming from strength, not from weakness and fear. They wring their neck. They say, "Come on, bring it on. We're going to play." So running, wringing their neck, that kind of stuff. You know, the other one, they kind of get wide eyed and go, "Nah." You know, I'm terrified, pacing back and forth. So, um, yeah. The happiness that comes from physical movement and maybe chasing other horses and maybe a little dominance or dominance play or interaction, that kind of happiness, if the horse likes that, we can interact with them on that level. That's basically how I see that.
Mhm.
When I see them doing that, then I go, okay, I need to change my game plan, because for me to stand in the middle and have them do fancy figures around, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, Frederick Pignon was the master of that, or is the master of that, because his horse would take off in the show and he would just run across the arena, meet him halfway, vault up on his back, and then, okay, run wherever you want because I'm here.
Yeah.
It's really great to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah. And it's that flexibility to read what's happening in the moment and then adapt. So it kind of comes back to what you said about the horses having some freedom to control their environment so they can tell you how they're feeling.
Right. You observe the behavior, and then and basically, I think they're happy if they want to play. If they come to you, want to play, and I don't pay, as you know, I don't pay too much attention to ears back, because that can be so many things. And if they show up and they want to play and they don't want to leave, and they're, you know, concentrated, or sometimes, you know, even people, we say they have resting bee face,
Mhm.
right? So they don't even know it. How you doing? Oh, I'm great. Well, tell your face. Yeah. Oh, all right.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love that you brought that up because this happens a lot, and seeing all my different characters in my herd at different times. Ovation has a grumpy face on. I can see him have a grumpy face out in the pasture, and he walks up to another horse and just bites him on the butt, and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's Ovation," where on a different horse that might be a sign of something else. And I've seen horses be incredibly afraid, and their ears are up,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've had horses be totally content, and they have the resting bee face, as you said, or
Yeah.
they're focusing, or I always say, like, look at the photographs of a sprinter mid sprint.
Right.
They're not like,
Yeah. Hussein Bolt crossing the finish line.
yeah,
You know, unless he's ahead by like 20 lengths, you know, he's like,
in the middle of athletic endeavor.
yeah. It's interesting because on the way in this morning, the horses came in from the grass, and then I let them out into the front area where they live, and Sam had started to clean out there, and then the food delivery, because we're not going to grocery shopping, came, and he had to go deal with that. So I came out, and the cart was out there with, you know, the manure cart that they seen, you know, thousands and thousands of times, was sitting out there in a place where it's not normally, and all three of them were standing there, and I took a picture of it from behind. So I didn't get that beautiful years up picture, but the point is, those horses, if you took the picture from the other side, people would be like, "Oh wow, look at the beautiful expression," but they were all terrified.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to look at what's the whole behavior, not just the ear position. And I definitely have one horse, Leon, that he pretty much goes around with his ears back all the time, whether I'm there or not. And but I do see him. He's definitely low man on the totem pole, and the others push him around, and so it's like his little defensive place where he's kind of saying, you know, don't come over here. I'm fine. Leave me alone. But then when the other ones will stop paying attention to him, then he'll like light up a little bit, and he'll go over there and then take a bite and run. So he's so expressive that, you know, that when he comes in and he's got his ears back and he walks in, you know, coming in to eat, I look at him and I go, "What are you thinking?" And he go, "What?"
Yeah.
It's like, what? I find it charming, actually, with him. Now I have a special place for him because he's a relative to 13. I've had him since he was a baby here, so maybe I'm not looking at it impartially, but I find that aspect of him to be charming. And the real answer is, if I didn't find it to be charming, not much I could do about it. I don't think I could train him to put his ears forward, but then the question is that going to make him happier? Probably not.
Yeah. No, I think it's hard. The Ovation is very expressive, and he really changes very quickly in what his face looks like. So sometimes when I get ready to ride him, he can be standing there in the grooming stall and he has his face on. I think, gosh, if somebody looked at him right now, they'd think, oh, this poor miserable old school horse or something.
Yeah.
But I take him off. I take his halter off and hold up the bridle, and he's like, "Rah! Give it to me." And if I don't, like today, I didn't ride him. It was his day off, and he was just pestering. He kept putting himself in the grooming stall. He kept being in the way. So he kept looking for that attention. And, he seems really willing. Willing is, I think, part of happiness, right? They're willing. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. They show up.
They show up
and say, "Let's play." That's a good sign of happiness. I think.
Yeah. And again, I think the key again is for those of you who maybe aren't doing so much liberty or listening to this, like to give your horses these chances to show what they really wanted to do. And to be able to listen to them and give them some choice, I think.
Am I misremembering, or did I put the first ride on Ovation?
You did, and I still don't forgive you for that. No, it wasn't a ride; it was a sit.
I don't think I knew that it was the first, right?
Well, at
you
least
told me afterwards.
I know. Oh my God. Okay, so a couple things you're saying I want to go circle back to is there's how they are in their environment, and then there's how they are with us. And these are two things that I think about. So I want to feel like if I look out my window, I feel like my horses are happy, like that they have a certain level of not unhappy at least.
Right.
And then there's what happens when I show up. And I think there's some playing, because not every horse has 53,000 acres and to roam on with varied terrain and safe. Sometimes our horses are kept in small areas, so you could look and say, well, the horses aren't grazing, they're not moving, they're not having a lot of space. But then how can we can at least have them like not unhappy, but then how much can we actually enrich their lives and
yes.
Well,
that's exactly what
they're not all in perfect horse landscapes, but how much can I make up for that?
Right. And I was thinking about when you said that, like if I look out now, because my daughter's older horse has to get special food and the horse she's with would steal it, I separate them. Mm-hmm. So you would see the younger horse pacing the fence line because saying, "Hey, that one's getting cool stuff to eat and I get nothing in here." Well, she has hay in there, and so she's unhappy being locked up in there away from her buddy. But it's just a fact of life. She has to get used to that. But it's you wouldn't see them. They at least most of the time are out, and I worry about that because a lot of people have horses living in a stall. Maybe if they're lucky, they have a stall with a little outdoor run. If they're really lucky, you set it up with a fence outside that they can either choose to be separate from the other horse or next to them, or they can go outside and play across the fence. That's a great way to make it more interesting for them. But in the end of the day, they're stuck in this little tiny place, and it's not so great. But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't like it because I only have 2 acres and I have 10 horses here. I mean, they all have a place to run around. They can run around. But so we would go to Pat Parelli's ranch and he'd say, put them in the back 35 acres. Okay, we put them up there. They run unbelievable. It's so great to see for the first 8 minutes. And then the rest of the 2 months I'm there, they're standing by the food thing waiting for somebody to come and feed them. So how much do they really need to run around? Kind of depends. I don't feel like, oh my God, they're miserable if they're stuck in stalls. But we need to find some way to enrich, exactly the word you use, enrich their lives. Now you can have toys for them to play with in there. You can have puzzles for them to solve. There's food enrichment things like what's a 16-agon called?
Oh, yeah.
16-sided figure.
Yeah.
With that it rolls around and finally, a treat will fall out if they get it rolling in the right sequence. So that kind of stuff. Other horse interaction with other horses, even if they can't run, they can at least play over the fence, that kind of thing. Yeah, but in general, that if they're used to if they're feeling comfortable and safe, I think they're happy. Whatever they're doing. Most of the time, they're doing nothing or they're eating.
Yeah.
Again, once in a while they play a little bit, but it's not this, confinement of a, like not the confinement that people are feeling now. Because they used to go, this can be torture for some people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. My horse, Bubba, who's the one I brought to the clinic way back when he retired, when he was really done being ridden, I didn't have a place to keep him. So I sent him to, he was at a dressage facility. There was no real turnout. It was, I thought not a great place for him. And I, at that point, didn't have a lot of time to take care of him. So I sent him to a friend of mine's who lived and had this beautiful farm with rolling grass, and he could be turned out with another horse. And it was like, this is perfect. I felt so good sending him there. He'd be so happy. And when I would come back and visit him some months later, I'm like, wow, he actually does not look happy. And he was being well cared for, but I was like, wow, he looks terrible. So I ended up bringing him to another person's farm who was much more interactive. And her nephew would come and ride, and and he'd blossom. So here was this horse, I thought would make him happy.
No.
He was like, he missed having his person, even though he had people there taking care of him in the first place. So in that case, how did I know he was unhappy? Well, his body condition changed. And I knew him. I knew his expression, and I knew it wasn't the same. So it can be really subtle, and it can be illogical sometimes, but I think that's where you have to know about horses, but then to really know your individual horse.
Yes. Yeah, and to be sensitive to those things. I always, I have to really work at being sensitive to a lot of things, being aware of a lot of things. And I know that my friend Bruce Almeida, when he would ride, he felt so much about the horse, and we went to the celebration together, and he would be riding in the warm-up ring, and he'd just hop off, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I can feel his breathing isn't right. Something feels not right." And then they'd go, and he had a fever, and he had bronchitis, and all kinds of stuff that he could just tell that this is not the way we usually dance, and it's not right. So we know, somebody that's in tune with their horse can really, really feel that. I did have, when Scotty had EPM, I went to the vets and I said, he's tested positive, and I could tell just there was one little thing that he was doing that was not. It was not him. He'd have like a panic response over something like close to his face that he would never, ever have. And he would be so violent that he would smash his head on something. So his face was all full of marks from where he had banged his head. And I could see when he had those marks, okay, something, I could see this is not right. And they said, I was on the road, and I took him to the university, and they said, okay, well, can you just give him the medicine? We had him tested. I said, no, we have to put him through the neurological exam. Well, he passed the neurological exam with flying colors. They have all these little things you have to step up, step down. Yeah. You know, I had him lie down. I had him sit. Do all kinds of stuff. He was fully functional, but I could tell. I just knew it. So the more time you spend with them, the more you'll just feel, are they happy or are they in some kind of trouble? That's a really good point, is to get to know them that well. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it sounds like almost, it's so old now. It sounds like a little bit of BS. Spend undemanding time with your horse, spend some undemanding time with your horse. Well, it's way more powerful even that we thought when we first started thinking about it in those terms. Mm-hmm. Just you show up and you be there, and they will find joy in being with you. If you just be there for them, mm-hmm. You don't have to do anything. You just be there. And the more you do for them, the more it even highlights it. So if you scratch them, or you take them to the grass, or you bring them a mint or something. So when the girls come here, it's always been girls. Yeah. But when they arrive, the first thing I say is, you have one job here. For the first week, I don't care what you do. I don't care if the chores get done, nothing. Is to get every one of these single horses and get them to love you.
Oh, I love that.
That's all your only job. And there's 10 of them here. So, here's the ones you maybe want to focus on, because you might be doing more with them. But every horse, you need to know his name. When you call them, they need to come. I need to know that you've created this with them. And it's no pressure it's a lot of pressure to have no pressure.
Yeah, I love that. Your job is to get your horse to love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're going to need to be there and observe them and think about what is going to make this horse love me more than just being like tolerating me in the environment. I think it's
right. And from Dr. Zelig's come bearing gifts, really. I mean,
yeah.
People say, "Oh, I want him to love me for me and not for the food." Like, yeah, how'd that work out in your first date when you, yeah. We're going to a restaurant, but we can't order anything. So what? I'm going to cook you, and I'm going to cook dinner for you, and it's like a frozen meal. What? We don't think about it as everybody's in it for something. Give them what they want, and they will enjoy being around you. I mean, I find that to be especially aggravating argument, that I want them to love me for me and not for the food. Well, you're going to feed them anyway. Why don't you make it something pleasant?
Yeah. And I think in horses in general, there's because of the history and the tradition, I think there's this assumption of obligingness that somewhere in there we think horses need to do it because we ask. And it's like, no, we need to step up for them. I mean, I think we're in different times where.
Yeah. Well, there's the, that they need to do it because we asked, and then they need to do it because they wanted to do it.
Yeah. And how are they going to want to? Because,
Right. It has to be something in it for them, and they have control over their own environment. If we give them a choice and they choose to do it, and they go, wow, this worked out. I chose this and it worked out great. I think I'll do it again. So motivational strategies, those are key to also finding happiness for the horse, I think.
Awesome. If you can you think of a particular horse? I think you touched on this a little bit already, that like you have a particular horse, you knew he wasn't feeling so happy for whatever reason. What are some things that you might do to act like, if you went like, I need to go cheer up Scotty, or cheer up, what are some things that you might do, like just individually?
Yeah. Usually it's there. when I see that they're unhappy in doing something. So I right away change what we're doing. And often, most of the time, it's do something that's, big pay for little work. Remember that show, Moonlighting?
Yeah, I do.
Was it Bruce Willis and I can't remember her name.
Lady.
I can see her face.
Yeah.
Anyway, they worked at this private eye office or something, and there was always like 20 people in there, but they, what are they all doing? They're not doing anything, right? They're just an office, and there's all these people busy, but they never do anything. And so one episode, they decided to go on strike, and their chant was, "No work but pay. No work but pay." So this is the kind of thing, if you want to like swing the pendulum the other way to happiness, give them no work but pay. I think it makes sense. Yeah. In the end of that episode, they said, "Wait a minute, you're already doing." You already have no work and you're getting paid. But it's not something. I mean, you could end up at the extreme. You could end up like only have a horse that does nothing except demand food. So that's kind of a one-sided enabling kind of relationship that probably would not be satisfying to either of you in the end. So, but I think, take away your thoughts and say, okay, what would you rather be doing than this? And maybe it's, let's go in, let's get a big thing of alfalfa pellets, and let's put the scratching gloves on and let's have a little massage spa day or something. Most of the time, because we don't have grass here, I mean, it's a very precious resource. Taking them to grass is a huge thing. Although I have had my neighbor has a place where she used to keep horses, and the grass grew up really tall. And I said, "Can I bring the horses over there?" And 80% of the horses, oh man, they can't wait to get over there and turn them loose, let them eat the grass. It's great. But two of them, they were very unhappy. They were senior horses. They've been living over here their whole life, and over there they felt like, they were calling and screaming. So one day I said, "Okay, I'm bringing all the horses over there." So now they still wanted to be back where they felt safe. It wasn't the horses they were after; it was the safety here. So that was like the worst thing I could do for them. But in general, when we don't have this pasture situation, that's what I like to give them is, okay, let's go for a walk and find some grass. And also, Meredith, my friend Meredith, she always talks about when she likes to trail ride. I don't like to trail ride so much, but she is constantly every weekend going, sometimes during the week, she's going on these long trail rides. And when I do occasionally go with her, she says, "Okay, now we have when we go out, we're going to have mandatory 30 minutes of grazing time. And that can be in 3 10-minute segments, or it can be 2 15s or 1 30-minute. But I'd like to think in terms of 30 minutes grazing on a 4-hour trail ride is not that much." And so I kind of adopted that, even when I just going around the block here. I don't think it's a trail ride, but I guess it qualifies. But I will always say, okay, some portion of the trail ride is going to be stopping and grazing in a place that's got luscious grass that you wouldn't be able to find at home. So I think, this is how you change their mind about being happy when you feel like they might not be, or they might, okay, another trail ride. But you remember Andrea Wadey from
yes.
Costa Rica? So she was brilliant. They had these rides. It wasn't a long ride, maybe 25 minutes to the waterfall, and then they would tie the horses up, and the people would get in the waterfall and get a mud pack thing, and but the horses, somebody went ahead and hung hay nets all from around the trees. So when they got there, this is like, wow. And then when they got home, there were hay nets hanging there. It's like every place we go, it's like,
I love that. Just taking that minute to think ahead, and not just let's do it and the horse's job is to go and to be tied, but think, well, how can we make the horse be a little bit more comfortable, or happier there. I'll do that sort of thing with my horses if they're training and things are getting hard, and I know like, okay, this is going to be a big physical day, or we're training something they find challenging, and I decided, okay, I'm going to be working on this. I'll have my assistant, I'll say, while I'm out walking around, go hide their special treat. They always get special treats when they're done with the ride. Go hide the special treats over here. And so right at the end of the ride, and where my horse is not expecting it, I get off, take the tack off, and I go, look what I found. And they're like, oh my God. So it's a small thing. It's just a few, 100 yards different location where they're getting their treat that they get after every ride anyway. But that surprise and that extra reward, it's such a small thing. And that's just making him a little bit happier after that ride than he would have been without that. So it's like, that to me is like a little degree, or just stopping at the lush grass when you're on your trail ride. Like, ooh, there's some grass. I'm gonna let you graze there. And it's just a nice extra thing you can do if it makes the horse a little more comfortable, or a little more like, yay, I love it when we do that.
Why don't we say this? Because I mentioned it before. Let's think about our relationship with the horse is like it's like 50 first dates.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Every day you go out there, you have to try to win their affection, because of course in that movie she couldn't remember, but the idea is we get very complacent. I've been married 35 years, on those first weeks of dating, boy, I did way more than I'm doing now. It's just wrong. I think I should be doing more. So to think of the relationship as, if I know you want them to love you for you, but give them a little extra attention. It'll come back in spades. That's it. Yeah. Make it like it's the first date.
I love that. And if you want them to love them for you, be the you that
they want to be around. Right.
Well, like, I don't want to be like, I'm going to be a jerk and I want you to love me no matter what. Like, no, I want to help you.
And it goes back to the platinum rule as well, instead of the golden rule, right? The golden rule says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But the platinum rule says, do unto others as they would like to have done to them.
Yes.
So we have to know that the horse, I love to gallop through the fields. Oh, my horse hates galloping. He would rather stand still. Okay, so let's not try to make that, try to get to be his idea rather than trying to just say, we're going to have fun. No, that's not fun.
I love that. I think that's my last question is going to be, do you have a general rule or takeaway? But I think you just nailed it. I think that's it.
Make each interaction like it was the first date, and then go from there.
Love it.
Then my Liberty Outside the Round Pen, which is available streaming and on DVD.
All right.
On my website.
I'm just going to pause and then say, David, where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Just look on Facebook, David Lichman, Parelli Professional, or davidlichman.com. Those are easy. But in that series, I had Marianne Kennedy write a song for that, Liberty Outside the Round Pen. And she said, well, give me some ideas for lyrically, and I'm not a lyric person, but I just came up with just the chorus line. Who is the person I need to be for you to want to stay with me? And then she took it in 2 days. She had the complete song recorded and everything. It was just amazing. She was brilliant. But it was that seed of an idea. Who is the person I need to be that you would like to hang around with me? And then, of course, she changed at the end of the song. It says, I'll be the person I need to be for you to want to stay with me. So, in the course of the song, she's grown. Yeah.
I love it.
Yay. We could look at Leon now. He's got his ears forward. I can just see him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. How many horses have been like terrorized with a plastic bag on a stick in order to get a picture of them looking happy? Anyway, well, David, I'm going to do the official wrap up. Thank you so much.